Welcome everyone to today's Strive webinar, Food Labels Exposed. My name is Renee, and I'm a board certified health coach here with Lexi, a registered dietitian, and we are wellness coordinators at Kapnick. Today we're talking about something most of us deal with every week, food labels. I think we can all agree grocery packaging can be helpful, but it can also be confusing. One package says natural, another says whole grain, and yet another zero sugar, high protein, or made with real fruit. Those phrases may tell us something, but they rarely tell us the full story. The goal today is not to make grocery shopping harder or make everyone feel like they need to read every label perfectly. The goal is to give you a simple, realistic way to look past the marketing, understand the nutrition facts label, and make choices that feel more informed. By the end, you'll have a few quick questions you can ask yourself before putting something in your cart. So let's start with a quick poll, and you can put your answers in the chat. Which label claim catches your attention most when you're shopping? Is it A, natural, B, whole grain, C, zero sugar, D, high protein, E, organic, F, gluten-free, or G, made with real fruit? So go ahead and put your answers in the chat if you'd like to. And there's no wrong answer. These claims are designed to catch our attention, and many of them sound positive. And as you answer, think about what you assume when you see those claims. For example, when you see natural, do you assume it's less processed? When you see high protein, do you assume it's automatically more filling or healthier? When you see zero sugar, do you assume it's the better option? That space between what the claim actually says and what we assume it means is what we're trying to unpack here today. And before we get into the confusing claims, it's worth asking, why do food labels exist in the first place? At their best, food labels help us answer practical questions. What is in this food? How much nutrition does it provide? How much counts as one serving? Are there ingredients I need to know about because of an allergy, medical condition, preference, or personal goal? That information can be genuinely useful. We cannot know everything about packaged food just by looking at the front. The tricky part is that food packages have two jobs. One job is to inform us, the other is to sell us the product. The nutrition facts label, ingredient list, and allergen statement give us details. The front of the package is usually trying to get our attention quickly. That does not mean the front is always wrong, but it often highlights the product's most appealing feature. So today, we're not saying ignore food labels, we're saying use the full label. Here's the main idea we'll come back to throughout this presentation. The front of the package sells, the back of the package tells. The front is where the brands compete for attention with claims, images, buzzwords, and benefits. Some of those claims are meaningful, some are regulated, some are useful, but the front usually shows the product in its best light. The back, or the side of the package, gives us more context. That's where we find serving size, added sugars, sodium, fiber, saturated fat, protein, ingredients, and allergens. A helpful habit is to treat the front as an invitation and the back or the side as the explanation. So when you see a claim that sounds good, and the question is not really, is it good or bad? The next question is, what does the rest of the label tell me? Food decisions are just not about knowledge. They're also about time, stress, budget, taste, habits, and marketing. Most people are not standing in the grocery store with unlimited time to compare every detail. We're trying to make quick decisions, and packaging is designed for that moment. A green label, a farm image, a leaf icon, or words like simple, clean, natural, or lightly sweetened can make a product feel more nutritious before we even ever check the facts. This is where the idea of a health halo comes in. A health halo happens when one positive sounding feature makes the entire food seem healthier. For example, a product might be labeled high protein, organic, or made with whole grains. That makes it feel like a better choice, even if the full nutrition profile is more complicated. That does not mean consumers are careless. It just means that packaging is persuasive. So our job today is to slow down the decision just enough to check the details. Here's a simple system we'll use today: serving size, nutrients, ingredients, and comparison. First, serving size. Before we can judge any number on the label, we need to know what amount of food those numbers are based on. And we'll go into more of each of these in more detail. Second, nutrients. Most people do not need to analyze every line. For general wellness, the most useful ones to scan are usually fiber, added sugar, sodium, saturated fat, and sometimes protein, depending on the food. Third, ingredients. The first few ingredients tell us what's in the product and what it's mostly made from. Fourth, comparison. Labels are most useful when we compare similar products: yogurt to yogurt, cereal to cereal, bread to bread, frozen meal to frozen meal. This keeps label reading realistic. We're not aiming for perfect, we're aiming for informed. Serving size is the first place to look because every number on the label is based on that amount. For example, say a snack has 150 calories, 6 grams of added sugar, and 180 milligrams of sodium per serving. If the package has 2 servings and you eat the whole package, those numbers double. That matters because some packages look like one portion but are labeled as more than 1 serving. Drinks, muffins, snack bags, ramen, frozen meals, and desserts are common examples. This does not mean the serving size is telling you how much you should eat. It's simply telling you what amount the nutrition information is based on. So the key phrase here is serving size sets the math. Step 2, knowing what the nutrients are inside the packages. One reason labels feel overwhelming is that there are a lot of numbers on there. Calories, grams, milligrams, percentages. It can feel like you're supposed to understand every line before you make a decision. But you don't need to give equal attention to every part of the label. For general wellness, a useful approach is to focus on the nutrients that tend to affect the overall dietary quality. Many people benefit from getting more fiber from foods like fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. Many people also fall short on nutrients like vitamin D, calcium, potassium, and iron, though every individual's needs vary. Protein can also be helpful to check when you're choosing something meant to be a meal or a filling snack. On the other side, many eating patterns are higher than recommended in sodium, added sugars, and saturated fats. That does not mean a food is automatically a problem if it contains them. It means these are worth noticing, especially in the foods that you eat often. A helpful shortcut is the percent daily value, or the percentage DV. This gives context to the numbers, because honestly, most people do not automatically know whether 400 milligrams of sodium or 3 grams of fiber is a lot. A simple guide is 5% daily value or less is low, and 20% daily value or more is high. So if you're looking at something you may want less of, like sodium, saturated fat, or added sugar, a lower percentage of the DV can be helpful. If you're looking at something you want more of, like fiber, calcium, vitamin D, iron, or potassium, a higher percentage DV can be helpful. Think of this as a quick snapshot, not a final verdict. Instead of reading the label top to bottom every time, scan for what matters most to your goal. So added sugar is one of the most useful numbers on a nutrition's facts label. Total sugar include all the sugar in the food. This may include naturally occurring sugar from milk, yogurt, fruit, or vegetables, plus any sugar added during the processing. Added sugars are the sugars added during processing or preparation, and that distinction matters. Plain yogurt and sweetened yogurt may both contain total sugar, but the sweetened yogurt will usually have more added sugar. Fruit has natural sugar, but that is different from the fruit-flavored snack that has added sugars and little fiber. And there are many names for added sugar, including sugar, sugar cane, syrups, honey, agave, molasses, fruit juice, concentrate, dextrose, maltose, and sucrose. But the good news is you do not need to memorize every name. That's why the quote-unquote includes added sugars line on the nutrition labels is so helpful. A practical question to ask is, how much added sugar is in this food? How often do I eat it? And is it worth it to me? That keeps the conversation realistic. Sweetened coffee creamer, flavored yogurt, cereal, granola bars, sauces, beverages, and desserts can all fit. The point is to know when you're getting close, is when you're choosing to choose intentionally. Now let's look at zero sugar versus no sugar added. This is one of the most common label mix-ups. Zero sugar and no sugar added do not mean the same thing. Zero sugar or sugar-free usually means the product has very little sugar per serving, but that does not automatically mean it is calorie-free, carbohydrate-free, or nutrient-rich. No added sugar means no sugar-containing ingredient was added, but the food may still contain naturally occurring sugar. Unsweetened applesauce is a good example. It can have no added sugar and still contain sugar from the apples. Some zero sugar products use low-calorie sweeteners or sugar alcohols. Those can be helpful for some people, especially if you're trying to reduce added sugar. But sugar alcohols can cause digestive discomfort for many or for some individuals, especially in larger amounts. So the better question is not, is zero sugar good or bad? The better question is, what replaced the sugar? And does the overall product still make sense for me? Now let's look at whole grains. Whole grain claims can be genuinely helpful, but they can also be vague. Whole grain contains the bran, germ, and endosperm of the grain. Because of that, whole grains usually provide more fiber and nutrients than refined grains. But terms like multigrain, wheat, or made with whole grains do not always mean the product is mostly whole grain. Multigrain just means that it contains more than one grain. Wheat bread can still be made mostly from refined flour, and brown color does not prove that it's whole grain either. The ingredient list gives you a better clue. Look for the word whole before the grain, especially near the beginning of the list. Whole wheat flour, whole oats, whole rye, or any other clearly named whole grain. Then check the fiber. If a product is promoting whole grains but has very little fiber, it may be worth comparing it with another option. The goal is not to find the perfect bread, cereal, or cracker. It's to avoid Avoid letting one phrase on the front of the package do all the decision making. Remember, the front sells, the back tells. Natural is another one of the most emotionally powerful words in food packaging. It sounds simple, pure, and trustworthy. But on many packaged foods, natural does not tell us much about the overall nutrition quality. A natural snack can be still high in added sugar. A natural soup can still be high in sodium. A natural beverage can still contain very actual nutrition. This is where marketing and meaning can separate. The word can make us feel better about the product, but it does not automatically tell us whether that product has fiber, protein, vitamins, minerals, or a reasonable amount of added sugar or sodium. A helpful way to think about this is natural is a cue to look closer, not a reason to stop looking. Natural is a vibe. The label is the evidence. And this is a big buzzword right now, protein. And protein is important, and many people benefit from including protein at meals and snacks. It can support fullness, muscle maintenance, and meal satisfaction. But protein has also become a major marketing word. We now see protein cookies, protein chips, protein cereal, protein coffee, protein desserts, and even protein-style candy bars. The question is not, is protein good? Protein is useful. The better question is, what else comes with it? For example, a protein bar with very little fiber and a lot of saturated fat may not serve the same purpose as Greek yogurt with fruit, eggs with a whole grain toast, edamame, beans, cottage cheese, tofu, tuna, or nuts. That does not mean the bar can't ever fit into our lives. It just means that the protein number should not distract from the rest of the food. Protein can be part of a smart choice, but it's not a free pass for the whole product. So organic, gluten-free, and non-GMO labels can matter for different reasons. For some people, they relate to medical needs. For others, they reflect values, preferences, environmental concerns, comfort level, or budget decisions. But from a nutrition standpoint, these labels are not shortcuts for overall food quality. A gluten-free cookie is still a cookie. An organic sugary cereal can still be high in added sugar. A non-GMO snack can still be low in fiber and high in sodium. That does not mean these labels are meaningless. It means each one answers a specific question, not every question. So when you see one of these claims, ask yourself, does this claim matter for my needs? If it does, that's useful. Then keep going and look at the nutrition facts label and ingredient list for the whole picture. And the ingredient list is where the story becomes clear. Ingredients are listed from the most to the least by weight in the product. That means the first few ingredients tell us a lot about what the product is mostly made from. If the packaging says made with real fruit, but the fruit is near the bottom and the sugar is near the top of that ingredient list, that tells us something. If the bread says whole grain, but the first ingredient is enriched wheat flour, that tells us something. And if a snack says simple ingredients, but the first ingredient is syrup or refined starch, that may not match what we expected. So one important note, unfamiliar does not automatically mean harmful. Some ingredients have technical names but are safe and serve a purpose, like preserving freshness, improving texture, or keeping the ingredients mixed together. The goal here is not fear, it's pattern recognition. What is this food mostly made from? And does it match the messaging on the front of the package? I'm going to hand the presentation off to Lexi now so we can learn more about this.
Thanks, Renee. We're going to do a little something a little bit different in this presentation. But before we compare these yogurts, I just want to pause and say this clearly. This is not about deciding one food is good and the other food is bad. That kind of thinking usually is not helpful and it actually can make nutrition feel more stressful than it needs to be. Instead, we're going to practice how to match the label to the goal. If you want a filling breakfast, I might care more about protein and added sugar. If I want a sweet snack, I might make a different choice. If I'm choosing something for a child, a quick lunch, or something convenient to keep at work, the priorities might shift again. So the question again is not which one is perfect. The question is, what does the label tell me? And does this food match what I want it to do? So let's do this 30-second label test with 2 peach yogurts. Both products are using a similar front of package message. They are highlighting fruit. One also highlights protein and simple ingredients. And we'll walk through the same questions. What claim is on the front? What is the serving size? What nutrients stand out? What are the first few ingredients? And finally, does the back match the front? To answer the second, the serving sizes are close, but not identical. The Yoplait is 6 ounces and Siggy's is 5.3 ounces, but they are similar enough for this real life comparison. So let's take a closer look. So for yogurt number 1, we'll start with the nutrients that matter the most for this example: added sugar, sodium, saturated fat, fiber, and protein. So this label shows 20 grams of total sugar, 14 grams of added sugar. Now, this is a great example because people often misread the sugar section. Total sugars means all sugars in the product, naturally occurring sugar plus added sugar. Includes added sugar means that part of the total sugar was added during processing. So we don't add 20 grams plus 14 grams. The product has 20 grams of total sugar, and 14 of those grams are added sugar. That also means about 6 grams may be naturally occurring sugar, likely from the milk and the peaches. And for context, 20 grams of total sugar is about 5 teaspoons of sugar. And for the rest of the label, this yogurt, it has 80 milligrams of sodium, 1 gram of saturated fat, 0 grams of fiber, and 5 grams of protein. So the main things that stand out are the added sugar and the lower protein. So now let's look at the first few ingredients in this. The first 3 are low-fat milk, sugar, and peaches. Now that tells us a lot. There is real fruit in the product, which matches the front of the package, but sugar is coming before peaches, which means there is more sugar by weight than peaches. So the front may make us think, peach yogurt, but the ingredient list gives a more specific picture: sweetened, low-fat yogurt with peaches. Now, that does not mean someone can never choose this product. It just means the label helps us understand what kind of yogurt it is. So if your goal is a sweeter snack, this might fit. If your goal is a more filling breakfast or lower added sugar option, you may want to compare it with another yogurt. So now let's try the same process with yogurt number 2, the Siggy's one. The front of this package highlights protein, simple ingredients, and real fruit. The serving size again is 5.3, so it's slightly smaller than the first yogurt, but still close enough that we can make this comparison. The label shows 11 grams of total sugar, including 7 grams of added sugar. That means some sugar is naturally occurring from the milk and the peaches, and then 7 grams were added, likely from the cane sugar. Now, compared with the first yogurt, this one has half the added sugar, 7 grams compared to that 14 grams. And for context, 11 grams of total sugar is about 2 3/4 teaspoons of sugar. So this yogurt also has 55 milligrams of sodium, 0 grams of saturated fat. And then we look at the protein and the fiber. It has 15 grams of protein, which makes it more filling than the first yogurt. And it has 0 grams of fiber, so the fullness is mainly coming from that protein. So either way, the key point is that the protein claim on the front is supported by the label. Now let's look at the first few ingredients. The ingredient list starts with cultured pasteurized skim milk, peaches, and cane sugar. Again, that order matters. Peaches comes before cane sugar, which tells us there is more peach than cane sugar by weight. That lines up better with a made with real fruit message on the front. But the ingredient list also tells us that cane sugar is still added, and the nutrition facts label confirms 7 grams of added sugar. So does the back match the front? Well, mostly yes. The front highlights protein and real fruit, and the back supports those claims. But the back also gives us the full picture. It is protein rich, made with peaches, and still contains added sugar. So that is exactly why we check both. The front gives us the headline. The back gives us the context. So now that we've looked at each yogurt separately, let's compare them side by side. So first, which one has more protein? The yogurt on the left has more protein. Yogurt on the right has 5 grams, while Siggi's yogurt has 15. Next question, which one has less added sugar? Again, Siggi's yogurt has less added sugar. Siggi's has about half the added sugar of number 1. Now let's compare. Is fruit near the top of the ingredient list, or is sugar listed first? Here again, we have, this is by weight. This tells us that there is more sugar than peaches by weight in the Yoplait, and then there's more peaches than sugar by weight in the Siggi's. Now we're going to do a quick myth check with you all. I'll read each statement and you can either answer true or false in the chat, or you can answer in your head if you prefer. So starting off, no added sugar means no sugar. True or false? The answer is false. No added sugar means no sugar containing ingredients was added during processing or preparation, but the food may still contain naturally occurring sugar. Fruit, milk, yogurt, applesauce are great examples. They contain natural sugar even when no sugar has been added. Myth number 2, multigrain always means whole grain. False. Multigrain simply means the product contains more than one type of grain, and those grains may be whole grain, refined grains, or mixed of both. Again, the better clue, as Renee told us earlier, is look for the word whole before the grain, especially near the beginning of that list. So myth number 3, gluten-free automatically means healthier. False. Gluten-free is essentially for people with celiac disease, which is a wheat allergy or certain gluten-related medical needs. But for the general population, gluten-free does not automatically mean higher fiber, lower sugar, lower sodium, or better nutrition overall. A gluten-free cookie is still a cookie. A gluten-free snack can be still low in fiber or high in added sugar. So the question, excuse me, is, does gluten-free matter for my needs? And then what does the rest of the label show? Myth number 4, natural means minimally processed. Well, false. So it's not necessarily. Natural does sound simple and trustworthy, but on many packaged foods, it does not tell us about the nutrition quality or level of processing. A product labeled natural can still contain added sugar, sodium, refined grains, thickeners, flavors, or very little fiber. So when you see natural, treat it as a cue to look closer. Natural could also just be the name of the brand. And then finally, myth number 5, high protein means balanced. This is false. Protein is useful. It can be help with fullness, muscle maintenance, and meal satisfaction, but protein is only one part of the picture. A high protein product may still be high in added sugar, saturated fat, sodium, but it also may be low in fiber or not very satisfying depending on the rest of the ingredients. So here's where I want to make this realistic for you. You don't need to read every label every time, and that can be overwhelming. And honestly, it's really not necessary. Instead, start with the foods you buy regularly. If something is in your cart every week, cereal, yogurt, bread, frozen meals, coffee creamer, snack bars, salad dressing, crackers, this is where label reading can be most useful. Small differences in everyday foods can really add up. Maybe you find a cereal with more fiber and less added sugar. Maybe you find a soup or frozen meal with less sodium. Maybe you find a yogurt with more protein or less added sugar. And maybe you realize the product you already buy works perfectly well for your needs. And that is the point. Label reading is not about overhauling your entire cart. It's about making small, informed upgrades where it makes sense and feeling more confident about the choices that you already make. So before we end this, I just want to give some takeaways. The front of the package is designed to get your attention, right? They're competing against so many other products, but it's the back of the package that's going to give you the details. 2, start with serving size because serving size sets the math. Then scan the nutrients that matter most for your goals. For many people, that means looking at added sugar, sodium, saturated fat, fiber, and protein. Next, read the first few ingredients. You don't have to read the entire list, just the first few, and that gives you a quick sense of what the food is mostly made from. And most importantly, remember this phrase: label claims are clues, not conclusions. Natural, whole grain, zero sugar, organic, gluten-free, made with real fruit, and high protein may each tell you one piece of information, but none of them tell you the entire story by themselves. Again, the goal is not to eat perfectly. The goal is to shop with more confidence, less confusion, and a little bit more control over the choices that you make often. So I do have a challenge for you this week. Pick one food that you buy often and compare it with 2 others. Just one. You could buy the original product that you buy often, but just compare it. Maybe it's bread, yogurt, cereal, crackers, salad dressing, coffee creamer, or snack bar. And then use that 30-second label test. Check the serving size, look at added sugar, sodium, saturated fat, fiber, and protein. Then ask yourself, which option better fits my goals, better fits my taste, my budget, and real life? That is label reading in real life. It's not about perfection. It's about making one informed choice at a time. So thank you everyone for joining. We hope you leave a little bit more confident reading food labels, a little less overwhelmed by packaging claims, and more prepared to make choices that fit your own goals, budget, and real life. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday, July 29th from 12 to 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about the future of health, exploring AI and wellness. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen to register and learn more. Thank you all for, again, joining us and spending part of your day. We'll see you next time.